take an Ivy championship as well. And all of these coaches have talked to us about depth. First, looking at the Brown Bears.
Yeah, Brown is coming off of a 7-5 record heading into this meet. Their season high score, 194.775. They're led by a new head coach this year in Brittany Harris, and she has been fantastic. A lot of energy, a lot of positivity.
For the Bears, they are looking at Cornell, Yale, and Penn as we take our turn with the Cornell Big Red. The Big Red tied with Brown in the national rankings, but they have some incredible depth.
They certainly do, and right at the top of the list is Sydney Beers, all-around gymnast who can compete in all 4 events. She has been fantastic, and her head coach Melanie Hall says consistency is the biggest thing that she's seen from Sydney Beers. She does not make a lot of mistakes.
For the Yale Bulldogs, compared to Brown and Cornell, a bit of a younger look. They are paced by a very talented freshman class and, of course, senior Reagan Walker.
Yeah, she's been outstanding. Reagan Walker, one of the best in the Ivy League and in the GEC in uneven bars. She has been fantastic. Andy Lease is their head coach. Smaller roster for Yale, but they are really strong. Ranked 2nd out of these 4 teams in the road to nationals.
And finally, the Penn Quakers, the top-ranked team coming in today, and you could say arguably the favorite. And talking to their coach, the words she used is trying to find consistency and hitting a stride, starting to peak.
Yeah, Penn last year, remember, they won the GEC meet with scoring over a 196. They took the crown in the conference last season. The Marr sisters are unstoppable. McCallie Marr in particular, the senior from Newtown Square, Pennsylvania, has been an NCAA qualifier before in her career.
4 teams times 4 events. The top 6 in each event will be crowned all Ivy, and we'll have the Ivy Classic for you on the other side of this timeout. Here to the Pizzatola Sports Center on the campus of Brown University, the Ivy Classic for David Korzanowski and our entire outstanding ESPN team. My name is Mike Rubin. Our first rotation's about to get underway with the Brown Bears starting on the bars. Cornell will be over on the vault, Penn on the beam, and Cornell on the floor. Yale will be over on the beam and Penn on the vault. So all 4 teams will have 6 athletes competing on all 4 of these events. And each one of these rotations, each team has a different starting event. It plays into a little bit of the strategy and talking to the coaches. They all have their singular event that they're looking to really fine-tune tonight.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think of this starting rotation, the most notable is that Brown is on the uneven bars. Brittany Harris told us we like the fact that we're starting on the bars. Get that out of the way early because the bars can cause a lot of deductions and is truthfully one of the harder events. So Brown knocks that out early. Keep an eye on Penn. They are the only team to eclipse a 195 as a team this year. Again, they won the GEC last season. This is going to be really close, though, Mike, because Brown, Yale, and Cornell, if you look at all of their season highs from this year, separated by just a point. So it's really anyone's meet to take today. And 1 through 4 should be quite close.
Cornell has been going up each week. Last week against Westchester had their season high 193.575. And the reality is, David, that in a meet like this, we're not talking necessarily about new routines. We're not talking about athletes taking additional risks or incorporating things that are perhaps more complex. What we are talking about are fine-tuning, and for those of us who are maybe not as expert in the naked eye approach to gymnastics, it could be a toe, it could be an eyelash, literally an eyelashes moment between, where a foot lands in a vault, in a floor exercise, and of course a dismount from the bars and the beam.
Yeah, you're onto something here, Mike, and it's all about fine-tuning. That's where we're at in this point in the season. It's about minimizing mistakes and really putting your best performance together, not adding many moves at this point in the season, not trying a ton of new stuff. It's about perfecting, refining, and what better chance to do it here today in the Ivy Classic.
Looking over at Yale, they're warming up on the beam. The Bulldogs going with Hannah Strauss, Gigi Sabatini, Claire Q, Emma Mangiacapre, Riley Meeks, and Reagan Walker warming up on the bars for the Brown Bears. That, I believe, is Jasmine Lee. Lauren Lazaro bouncing back from injury that kept her out of her senior day a couple weeks ago. Maya Davis, Lauren McEwen, Ella Poli, and Abby Contello into the lineup, notably for the Brown Bears. Asta Farrell out of the lineup.
Yeah, Asta Farrell has been a key contributor for the Brown Bears this year. Last week, though, she just competed in the uneven bars and had an 8.95 in her lone event. So Farrell not in there, and that is a change on the Brown side.
For Penn and Cornell, Cornell warming up for the floor exercise, and on the floor for Cornell, Kate Michelini, Cammy Whitaker, Victoria DeMeo, Alex Kiana, Sydney Beers, and Caitlin Walsh.
Really excited to watch Sydney Beers today, Mike. She is one of two all-arounders who competed in all four events last week, as well as Yale's Gigi Sabatini. Beers scored a 38.70 as her combined score last week, and on the floor, it was her best event. She had a 9.875 outstanding score for Beers on the floor a week ago.
And for Penn, who finished 4th out of 4 despite a 195.125. They did score 195.25 in a victory over Cornell a few weeks ago. Last week they were competing with the likes of, I believe, Temple, NC State, and George Washington.
That's correct. Yeah, it was a quad meet at Temple, and Penn had a really good score, over a 195, but they still finished 4th out of 4. Again, a lot of the focus is not necessarily on how you're doing compared to other teams at a quad meet like Temple. Obviously here today you want the crown, but it's about improving the scores. And for Penn, despite finishing 4th, don't let that fool you. They had a really good week.
Junior Campbell Marr vaulted a 9.9 last weekend. Her career high in the beam is also upwards of 9.8, 9.9. And so Penn quite poised for a potential championship run here. And keep in mind, if you're looking at the Penn Quakers, that they're a program that won, as David mentioned in our open, the GEC championship, and are trying to build momentum. Yes, they're starting on the vault, but had a program record on the beam last week, and as their coaches have said, just getting into a groove.
Yeah, we had a chance to talk with head coach Kirsten Becker, who competed as a student athlete at Penn and is now the head coach after spending a long time on the staff as an assistant and an associate. You mentioned that program record on the balance beam last week. How about this? Campbell Marr and McCallie Marr each had a 9.95 on the beam a week ago. So when Penn gets to the beam, that'll certainly be must-see TV.
We are getting ready for, I think, the opening routine on the floor for Cornell. Is Kate Michelini. Good first pass for her. You're going to look in the floor exercise for height and extension into the corner, but if you do happen to go over one of the lines, it is a deduction into the front somersault. Doesn't get as deep into the corner, but a well-executed first routine. So the top right corner of your screen is the floor. You'll see the vault in the top left, beam obviously bottom left, and the bottom right, the bars. And going clockwise, that is Penn, Cornell, Brown, and Yale.
How about this little quad box action? This is what it's all about. All four events going at the same time. It means great energy, means all the teams are following their teammates closely, and it is a great environment here at the Pizzatola Sports Center.
It's Jasmine Lee of Brown on the bars. Over for Yale on the beam is Hannah Strauss. A good exchange for Lee from one to the other. She'll have to get some velocity here into her dismount. A little stumble, but she's pleased with the result as she just had that half step. It'll cost her maybe a 1/10 of a point, but overall a solid effort for Jasmine Lee as we look down to the dismount of the beam. Well executed there by the Yale Bulldogs' Hannah Strauss. That first vaulter for Penn was Alicia Whirlin, and that's a great pass there by Kate Michelini of Cornell to get the Big Red started on the floor.
Yeah, the floor is the gymnast's favorite, usually across the board. Obviously, you get specialists who love the beam, bars, and vaults, but generally floor is where you can really express yourself, choose your music, dance. It's a lot of fun. Floor is a gymnast's favorite.
On the vault for Penn, I believe it was Sarah Kenfick, their second vaulter.
Take a look here. And you're looking dismount and landing, and you can tell just by the reaction that the Penn Quakers love it. Last week on the vaults, they had a 48.875. That was their second best event behind only the balance beam. Their vaulters are a solid group as well.
As Gigi Sabatini in the bottom left corner of your screen, she's getting ready to get on the beam. For Cornell in the top right corner is Michaela Burton, and on the bars is Lauren Lazaro for Brown.
We'll keep an eye on Sabatini on the balance beam. Last week, her last time out, she scored an 8.05 on the beam. I didn't have a chance to go back and watch, but usually a score like that means perhaps a fall and major deduction. And how about Brown on the uneven bars? Team loves that one. A huge performance by the Bears.
And check that as Cammie Whitaker on the floor for Cornell. As watch Lazaro here on her dismount. In a moment you'll see in the bottom left. And she landed it almost perfectly.
Yeah, McEwen is really excited, and Maya Davis is up next. That's one that's huge for the team's momentum, and Brittany Harris and company are loving it.
Down the vault on the top left corner of your screen into a reverse, and a nice landing by Rose DeBarbery, the third vaulter for Penn.
Vault is usually one of the quicker moving events, as they kind of just are off to the races. Obviously one sprint down and that's it. So vault is almost always the first to wrap up, and the Quakers rolling right now.
Yeah, DeBarbery was first team all GEC on the vault last year. Her best score was 9.775. We'll do our best to keep up with the scores, although admittedly in a four-ring circus, it's a little challenging.
Oh, it's mayhem in here. We're doing our best, of course, keeping up with everything. And I just want to follow up on the vault point that you made about Penn. They had 4 first-teamers in the GEC on the vault last year. Again, one of their best events. Right now, on the uneven bars, you got Maya Davis. Davis, an infectious personality, and she was not on the uneven bars Brown's last time out. Great landing.
We just saw why she was substituted in. And the Bears fired up.
This is a really good start for Brown on the uneven bars, and remember, this is one of the most challenging events, an event that multiple teams have said is crucial to their success, and Davis, the 3rd out of 6, is fired up.
Over on the vault, that was Marissa Lassiter for Penn, making that run. As getting ready on the floor is Victoria DeMeo of Cornell in the top right corner of your screen, and getting some instruction prior to heading up on the beam. That's Emma Mangiacapre, who will be the fourth beam contestant. She's waiting for Claire Q to finish her routine. Is getting ready to go down the vault runway is Campbell Marr.
I believe that Davis just scored a 9.75 on the uneven bars, which would be a really good score. We will get live stats at the end of each rotation, at least right now, as we will be tallying up the scores at the end of each and keep you updated how these team scores are progressing. But again, we're not going to get a good picture on who is in first, second, third, fourth until probably the very end of this meet. It's going to be close between these four teams.
That is Lauren McEwen as Q stumbles off the beam. McEwen into her dismount. And Marr vaulting, got good height, decent landing. And so far the passes for Victoria DeMeo on the floor have also been fairly clean.
Yeah, DeMeo got a 9.775 her last time on the floor. Senior from Saratoga Springs, New York, is a really experienced gymnast for head coach Melanie Hall. DeMeo also competed on the balance beam in Cornell's last meet. That was in a loss to Westchester, but a season best score, and DeMeo wraps up her exercise.
Goes down the wave of Big Red teammates. As getting up on the bars will be Ella Poli of the Bears.
I love the cowboy hat that they pass around on Cornell, but it's having a hard time staying perched on the high bun.
The high bun,
right?
Yeah.
It's a bit challenging. You got to get a little bit of a bigger cowboy hat to get it down on the head, I guess.
Maybe that's why the Bears use sunglasses.
They do use sunglasses. A lot of teams have sort of a token that they pass from gymnast to gymnast after they complete their exercise.
And that was Kirsten Belkoff of Penn wrapping up the vault. You're looking now at Ella Poli of the Bears. A good transfer as she's able to reverse on the higher of the two uneven bars.
And once you get to the second half of the 6 gymnast rotation in each event, you're getting better and better usually. And here comes the dismount.
Oh boy, what a dismount. It was a highly complex double twist dismount from Ella Poli. Watch her assistant coach over the middle left side of your screen. 1, 2, 3, and barely a bend.
Assistant coach Jay Villegas is super excited, and again, can't say it enough, but Brown was excited to start on the bars, and if they get a score that they like on the uneven bars, that will do wonders for their confidence as they move into more familiar events. Wow, fantastic pass on the floor just now.
Alex Kiana, the 4th gymnast on the floor for Cornell.
Kiana did not compete Cornell's last time out against Westchester on the floor. Junior from Oradell, New Jersey, went to Riverdale High School. About midway through her rotation now, head coach Melanie Hall on the far end of the gymnast, wearing the bright red top, close to the corner on the far side. We had a great conversation with her this week. Longtime coach at Cornell. She competed as a college gymnast at Radford. Her specialty event was the uneven bars.
For Kiana, this is really her first Ivy Classic, though she's a junior. She did not compete as we turn our attention to Abby Contello in the top right corner of your screen, Brown's final gymnast in the bars.
Kiana's crushing it on the floor right now as well, and you get a look at Yale on the balance beam. I did see one fall a little earlier, and another strong dismount by the Bears.
Now, the Bears did not have many weak performances on the bars. As you're looking over at the left side of your screen is Emma Mangiacapre of the Bulldogs, their 4th gymnast on the beam.
9.7 in Yale's last meet. That was at a George Washington quad meet. Yale's season best score this year was a 194.25, right around where Brown's best score is, just a half a point behind. In particular, I think Brown and Yale could be really close on their team scores today. And head coach Andrew Lease took over as the interim coach in 2021. He has an impressive resume and talked about the team focusing on going 24 for 24. He said he's not focused on a team score, but the fact that they want to go 6 for 6 in each event. And if they do that, they know that the team score will be where they want them to be.
And they have a little bit of a wild card, right? I mean, they have a lot of first years on the roster, and making that jump from the club to the collegiate level, something he mentioned is some of these gymnasts are not necessarily used to competing week to week. And, you know, David, when you have that number of first years, it also could sometimes be a positive because you really don't know what's at stake yet.
No question about it. And Yale has a smaller roster out of these 4 teams. It's only 17 gymnasts, and almost half are underclassmen. Gigi Sabatini is a perfect example. She's an all-around gymnast in her first year.
Right.
But this is a Yale team that finished 4th at the GEC Championships last year with a 194.825. And they come into today ranked 2nd out of the 4 teams on the road to nationals rankings.
This is Riley Meeks of Cornell. A good pass. Watch the corner. Stays in bounds.
I believe this is Sydney Beers.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm looking at the next Yale gymnast.
And watch out for Beers because she is a delight to watch over the course of the season. All-around gymnast, and she is a killer on the floor. Had close to a 9.9 in Cornell's last meet, and she'll be someone we're talking a lot about for the Big Red. Big pass here.
Yes, we go back over to the beam. That is Riley Meeks.
Yale's had a couple falls on the beam. One just happened off screen, and how about that finish from Sydney Beers? I've seen 2 gymnasts have to hop off of the beam, so a little bit of a rockier start for Andrew Lease's squad, but we'll see how they finish up this routine and respond going forward.
Caitlin Walsh will wrap things up for Cornell on the floor. Yale will wrap up with Reagan Walker on the beam.
And Walker is outstanding. She was a first-team All-GEC gymnast last year. Her best event is the uneven bars. First-teamer in that, first-teamer on the vault. And like you said, she has some action on the beam as well. She was a first-teamer in the GEC on the balance beam last year. Yale finishing up with Riley Meeks, and Walker, the anchor on the balance beam, will need a big score for Yale to be happy with where they're at going to the second rotation. And Penn is getting ready for their next rotation. They'll head to the bars next. Cornell finishing up on the floor. And
well, Penn's score on the vault is in. They do break last weekend's score by 0.25. They score a 48.9 in that first round. Brown with a 48.7 just behind them for following the bars.
That's a really good score on the bars for head coach Brittany Harris's squad. Last meet, Mike, they had a 47.925, almost a full point gained on the uneven bars for the Brown Bears. Really strong pass by the anchor on the floor for Cornell. That's Caitlin Walsh. Again, fractions of points we're talking about will separate these teams. And right now it's Penn and Brown at the top of the leaderboard through the first event. Cornell's scores coming in right now as well.
And I have to be honest, very much enjoying Caitlin Walsh's music selection.
What do we got? A
little AC/DC.
AC/DC, nice. Yeah, I was having a dance party before this meet started. The aux selections by these gymnasts are just, they're A+. I can't say enough about it. Truly, though, it's a great environment here.
Yeah, it's a great environment. It's a great playlist. It's getting the crowd into it. Reagan Walker's on the beam for Yale. Here comes the pass. Great height from Caitlin Walsh.
Walker finishing up on the beam as well, like you said. Those are the last two gymnasts here in this first rotation.
Yeah, the beam and the floor usually take a little longer than the bars and the vault. The vault obviously being the quickest. Walker, some good lines. So far, she has to hit her dismount. As Yale losing a little bit of points on a couple of their beam performers, competitors.
Walker is an elite gymnast. Andrew Lease was gushing about her ability and says she is one of the best gymnasts in the country. She's really high level, truly one of the best in the Ivy League.
Side dismount and clean.
Really good. And the Bulldogs have come to expect that from Reagan Walker. It just shows how much of a leader she is for Yale.
And with that, our first rotation is already in the books. The Bears with a solid performance on the bars in front of their home faithful. Cornell right there on the floor. Penn with an outstanding score over on the vault. And the beam, typically the most challenging in the rearview mirror for the Yale Bulldogs. A lot of energy here at the pits. We'll take a timeout. This is the Ivy League on ESPN. Well, and we were talking there to, you saw Kia McNeil. And in talking here during the tail end of Black History Month, that's Jackie Court, who was head coach at Brown for more than 30 years. She was the first female of color to coach at Brown. Coached here from 1969 to 2001 and was part of the reason why the program got elevated to the varsity level back in 1974. Was elected to the Brown Hall of Fame just before her passing. There she is with a couple of her sons, Ken and John. And Jackie Court was truly a legend of coaching, and she stood out also in testifying at the case that went all the way to the Supreme Court, codifying really equity for women's sports. And in this 50th anniversary of Title IX, it seems all the more appropriate to recognize the late Jackie Court, the legendary gymnastics coach here at Brown.
Yeah, foundational in building this program. Over 30 years at the helm, a true inspiration, and she helped make massive strides in the sport, and especially for the Brown Bears. Let's take a look at the scores, Mike. Penn has come out of the gates hot. 4 of their 6 vaulters scored a 9.8 flat. Brown on the uneven bars with a great score of 48.7. Abby Contello had the best score at a 9.825. Cornell with their score on the floor of a 48.625. They had Alex Kiana at a 9.8, and Yale did struggle on the beam They had 3 of their 6 contestants score below a 9.3, including Reagan Walker, who had a 9.225. Best score on Yale's beam was Emma Mangiacapri.
9.75?
Yep, 9.75.
So the way the rotation works, Yale will now go to the floor. Penn is going to go from the vault to the bars, Cornell to the vault, and Brown over to the beam for rotation 2. Which will get underway in under a minute's time.
Yeah, there's always a warm-up period between rotations. Give athletes a chance to practice one last time before they are competing for a score. And it's official, so we are wrapping that up now. Last 10 seconds of warm-ups.
Lauren Kramer will lead off the beam for Brown. She's twice been over 9.7 this season. On the vault for Cornell, Amy Kruger leading off. She'll be the first vaulter. On the floor for Yale is Lauren Holt. And on the bars, Sarah Kennefic for the Penn Quakers. And Coach Lease, who took over, talk about foundational to the sport, took over for Coach Tonry, Barbara Tonry, who coached at Yale for, over 50 years.
Yeah, she was the Titan for the Yale program, and Andrew Lease, big shoes to fill, and he stepped in as an interim coach after Coach Tonry's passing and then was named the official head coach. And he was great to talk to. He's also done some work for NBC Sports and helped with research at the Olympics. He's worked on the last 3 Olympic Games, I believe, and says that he's looking forward to Paris as well.
There's Coach Harris for Brown. Final words of advice. Telling Lauren Kramer, I think, to maybe just take a deep breath and have some fun.
You know what I love is there's a little bit of chalk on the back of Coach Harris's blazer. It's from all the hugs she's given out, right? Everyone on the uneven bars, they dust up their hands with chalk, make sure they have the best traction possible, and Coach Harris says she loves to jump, dance, squat, give out hugs, high fives. She is competing when her team is competing.
So Kramer on the beam, you just saw at the top left corner of your screen, that was Amy Kruger of Cornell. And on the floor for Yale, this is Lauren Holt. There's Kramer. A good line so far.
Yeah, Kramer lead off on the beam for Brown. Last time out on the beam, scored a 9.725.
That's Sarah Kennefic for Yale, for Penn rather. I'm sorry, top right of your screen. And now here comes Lauren Holt for Yale. A good job by Kramer there to bail out of her potential misbalance. A good routine to start for Kennefic on the bars.
Yeah, Penn is really a very polished team, and you're seeing it early on in this one. 4 9/8s on the vault, and their leadoff on the uneven bars. Kennefic does great. I'm interested to see how Penn's score on the uneven bars shakes out, because keep in mind, Brown scored a 48.7 on the bars today. Last time out, Penn scored a 48.225 on the bars. So after 2 rotations, it'll be interesting to see where Penn and Brown stack up.
The first pass from Holt, she did step over the white line. We'll lose 1/10 of a point for that, but otherwise has been a lot of energy.
One of my favorite parts about the floor exercise is all of the teammates that are watching right on the edge of the floor, and they are dancing along. They know the whole routine.
Here comes the pass.
Big pass coming here, you can tell.
Does well with it.
Look at the crowd behind as well. Really nice environment and great showing here at the Ivy Classic.
And I know you have your playlist, but after AC/DC to Earth, Wind, and Fire, I can appreciate that. And that was a good vault over your corner there for Callista Brady of Cornell.
Just tell me when the Soldier Boy and the Migos comes on, and then I'll be rocking on the floor.
See, I might be able to help you out with the Superman up here. Just don't let me get too close to the edge. That is Penn's Emma Davies. She'll be their second gymnast on the bars for Brown. Lauren McEwen will be next on the beam. Here comes Lauren McEwen.
Penn getting set here as well, like you said. I believe Emma Davies is next up on the uneven bars. And here's the beam. Wow, great start on the balance beam. Brown is competing very well at the start of this meet.
And unfortunately for Penn, Davies fell on the bars. And we'll see what McEwen can offer here in her next acrobatics.
Coach Brittany Harris said, when we're on the balance beam, we're dancing on the sidewalk. That's the image that she's used with her team. Only 3 inches wide. Just incredible athleticism and balance from these gymnasts.
There's a great shot. As you can see, literally hundreds of eyes upon Lauren McEwen. A great crowd here on hand from the Pizzatola Sports Center.
And Davies has come out with something to prove on the bars now that she's back on there. But there will be a deduction for that initial fall.
And McEwen nailed it.
She crushed that.
Absolutely, almost a perfect routine for her. A couple bends here and there, but you didn't see her come off her center of her hips on those 3 inches too often.
2 for 2, I'd count it on the balance beam. Kramer's score came in at a 9.725, great start, and I think McEwen might have even topped that. Cornell's flying on the vault right now as well. Haven't talked a ton about that, but dishing out high fives and floor exercise, cooking as well.
Yeah, that was Cammie Whitaker for Cornell. This is Sarah Wilson for the Yale Bulldogs. As she goes into her next pass, does Wilson.
Wow.
Hits it well, perfect spot on the corner for the junior from Alpharetta, Georgia.
Really impressive jump in the middle of the floor as well, and went with the straight legs on that first pass. Not easy to do. Wilson, and her last time on the floor, had a 9.8, and she seems to be happy with her performance here today.
Well, something we also heard from the coaches is not just what they accomplish on the mat, bars, vault, and beam, but what they accomplish outside.
Yep.
And she's a biomedical engineering major at Yale. I think she's going to be quite fine.
Yeah, it was great to talk with head coach Kirsten Becker of Penn, because there's an Ivy banquet the night before the Ivy Classic, and all 4 teams go, and they talk a lot about what these student athletes are interested in and what they're studying and what their plans are after graduation. Obviously, very high achievers here at these 4 institutions, and some really impressive young women that are competing here today and doing great things in the classroom. And here is Maya Davis on the beam. Another strong move for the Brown Bears on this event.
And the smile tells you a lot of what you got to know.
Yep.
Because once that happens, you can see confidence starting to build. And once you get over that initial sort of maybe set of butterflies, it becomes just another day at the office. Except my office isn't 3 inches wide.
And Maya Davis is always smiling. We've covered a couple meets together, Mike, and she is always extremely positive, has great body language, And here she approaches the dismount. Nice job by Maya Davis.
She had that one sort of pivot where she sort of wobbled off to her left.
Hey, stayed on the beam as well.
Stayed on, exactly. And so far for Brown, 9-7-2-5, 9-7-2-5 for the Laurens, Kramer and McEwen. Over on the bars so far, the only score in is Penn's Sarah Kenefick, who scored a 9-7. This, for Penn, is Kristen Kuhn. On the floor for Yale is Hannah Strauss.
Strauss on the floor had a 9.8 last week, and how about that dismount by Kuhn? She scored a 9.8 on the uneven bars her last time out, and Penn did have one fall on this event so far, so it does put a little extra pressure, I think, on some of the other athletes, and it looks like their token is a wreath of ivies, and it kind of comes down around the shoulders.
8.65 in the books for Davies, but I'm pretty sure Kristen Kuhn's going to be up around that 9.8 mark as we take a look back. On the floor, this is Hannah Strauss. Yale's had good scores on the floor so far, both over 9-7 for Holt and Wilson.
Strauss competes on the balance beam and the floor exercises. Hannah Strauss in her first year from Foster City, California.
Over on the beam for Hannah Strauss, and now is on the floor for Brown. On the beam now is Liza Marcus. And for Marcus, she's a beam specialist.
Yeah, fun to watch the specialists, of course. More focused on their one event and really perfecting it. Wow, front somersault tuck, and she lands it. Little wobble there, but again, stay on the beam, and you're already at a really solid base for your score.
Bears have two beam specialists. Marcus is one. Angela Zing, who would be the anchor in the 6th spot, is the other. Abby Contello on the beam in between them. As over on the bars, this is Carly Anoki.
And keep in mind, if you're a bit new to college gymnastics, there are 6 competitors in each event. Great dismount as well, and all smiles for the Bears. But I do want to make the point that 6 athletes compete. The lowest score is dropped in each event when you total it up. And that's why you get those scores right around 50. And Penn can pick up a little bit of the slack after that fall if the rest of their athletes are able to get solid scores.
Well, Kuhn hits a 9.8 on the bars.
Wow. That's big.
That's going to help. And so far on the vault, Sydney Beers, with her last vault for Cornell, went 9.825. That's the top overall vault with 2 teams already in the books.
And what did we say at the top of this broadcast, Mike? Sydney Beers is a really outstanding gymnast, and head coach Melanie Hall talked a lot about she's consistent. She doesn't make a lot of mistakes. She competes within her abilities. Sophomore, just a sophomore, and Sydney Beers is excelling as an all-around gymnast. 9.825, like you said, that tops last week for her, and that's the top score on that event right now.
Maya Davis in the books with a 9.775 on the beam. Here's a look at that vault. Watch the height and the landing.
Melanie Hall is so pumped right there by the landing spot, and great expression of joy for one of her best gymnasts on her team.
And here's Abby Contello of Brown. Bears have a little bit of wiggle room, believe it or not, on the beam as Liza Marcus just notched a 9.825. And Contello falls. I said they had a little bit of wiggle room because McEwen and Kramer were the Bears' low 2 scores, 9.725, 9.725.
And keep in mind who's coming up next, or towards the end of this event, I should say. You got Angela Zing, who has been outstanding on this event pretty much all year. Brown right now, they are competing at a high level, and you look at the beam, all of the scores, 9.725 or higher so far.
Bears end on the vault, and by that point, will likely have an idea of what they need to achieve if they want to push Penn, who right now is having themselves a pretty good day at the office. As heading up on the bars will be Skylar Carrico of the Quakers, and McKaylee Marr will wrap things up on the bars for Penn.
McKaylee Marr is so good. One of the best gymnasts in the Ivy League, one of the best gymnasts in the GEC. Balance beam is her best event, but she's also outstanding on the bars as well. Getting some momentum here. We got a dismount coming.
It was a complex dismount.
Very.
And so when you land and you're still in a little bit of that tuck position and your knees are bent, because of the complexity of it, it won't have that much of a deduction. But watch the landing right there, that sort of sling forward is what the judges are looking at.
There you get a look at head coach Kirsten Becker, dressed in all black with the blonde hair, and it takes a toll on these athletes physically as well, and a really strong dismount, but keep in mind that at this point in the season, there's little ticks and bruises, swollen ankles. I mean, this is a physically demanding sport. That was something really eye-opening when we talked with the head coach of the Yale Bulldogs, Andrew Leese. He said adjusting to weekly meets is something that younger gymnasts are not used to.
Well, and the nature of an injury may seem like nothing to another sport. I mean, I played soccer. If you jammed a finger, it was not an issue. If you're in the bars, you're out.
Right. No, it's a good point. The head coaches of these four teams talked about it as well. It can be the smallest, silliest injury that needs to be fully rehabbed, and little stumble on that pass towards the end, but Yale staying positive as they continue to compete here on the floor.
I believe this is Megan Bruick. Bruick, Meeks, and Sabatini still for Yale on the floor as the final competitor of this stretch of the bars. Marr will be up next.
And right now, Brown still has the best score on the uneven bars with Abby Contello at a 9.825. But again, McKaylee Marr, NCAA qualifier before in her career. She's a senior, and she's going to be the anchor here for the Quakers. Really looking forward to watching this routine.
Skylar Carrico's score is in at 9.425 as Angela Zing takes the beam for Brown down the other end of the floor. Of the arena, I should say. Marr for Penn on the bars.
Marr off to a great start, keeping the legs straight. Just such a clean and polished gymnast, as you can tell.
So there's your picture-in-picture. There's Marr down the left and almost went. Good recovery by Zing.
Wow! McKaylee Marr keeps the legs fully outstretched. I believe that was a double flip. And she lands it perfectly. Throws back her arms and her head in celebration, and Penn is fired up. They responded really well after a fall on the uneven bars, and the Quakers solid, and Zing pumped up as well.
Yeah, great dismount for Zing. Got good speed going across the beam into the dismount. And so now the beam is in the books as the Bears were very efficient and had some pretty good scores. Here comes Yale on the floor. This will be Riley Meeks, followed by Gigi Sabatini, after which we'll have another rotation.
Yeah, every other event has wrapped up here but the floor. This is always the longest event. Meeks has competed 5th out of 6 in each of her first 2 events, also went 5th on the balance beam.
So far, Cornell with still the 3 highest scores on the floor. Sarah Wilson of Yale's 9.725 holding up as the Bulldogs' top scorer.
Meeks is a senior from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Went to Green Hills High School, studying economics at Yale.
Did step on the line there. Didn't go over the line, but stepping on it will cost her possibly a 10th.
Strong finish there for Meeks, and she had a 9.775 her last time out on the floor. We'll see how she does here today. Just one gymnast to go in the second rotation.
And McKaylee Mars, 9.85 on the bars, a quarter of a point. I'm sorry, 25 thousandths of a point ahead of Abby Contello.
And that is the degree of separation we're talking about here. You add up these thousandths, and then you get to the final score, and it might be less than a point separating between teams, and maybe less than a half a point. So truly fascinating to watch throughout the competition.
Those vault scores for Penn looming large with the 4.98s.
Yep. Penn still does have the lead. We're waiting on Angela Zing's score on the balance beam to make that official. We'll see, but Penn right now through 2 events, 97.475. Of course, we'll update you on all the scores between rotations and as we get set for the third, but Quakers still in pole position by the looks of it, but we're waiting on Brown's final score. Solid job by Cornell on the vault as well.
Yes.
They've been consistent so far, 48.675 or higher in each of their first 2 events.
Well, the Brown score is in on the beam, and that is Zing with a 9.65, which means right now Penn's lead is 97.475 to Brown's 97.4, less than a 10th of a point.
Yeah, and Brown has closed the gap, Mike. They, after the first rotation, were down by 0.2. Now they're down by 0.075. This is the last routine of the second rotation. We got the all-arounder for the Yale Bulldogs, Gigi Sabatini, starting right now.
Now, keep in mind, Cornell right there as well. Their score, 97.4 on the strength of a 48.725 on the vault.
All the coaches really seemed to think that this meet was up for grabs, that it would be close, and that the level of gymnastics in the Ivy League has only risen in recent years. We're seeing that early on in this Ivy Classic, Mike. This is a great start to a wonderful event.
Well, it gives you a sense as to how all 6 gymnasts, in a word, matter. I mean, I'm sure the Bears, looking at the score, if this ends up, less than a 10th of a point off, they will look at the beam. They will look at the beam and say, okay, well, our bottom 2, our last 2 gymnasts in the beam, Contello and Zing, were their lowest 2 scorers. It's a little unexpected.
It does kind of vary from meet to meet, of course, and then you get, the best teams are the ones that are most consistent across the board, and it goes back to what Andrew Lee said for the Yale Bulldogs, going 24 for 24. It's a good way to think about a gymnastics meet from start to finish.
This is Sabatini for Yale.
Still thinking about that routine by McKaylee Marr on the uneven bars. Didn't compete in that event last week, and she is the leader on the bars through 2 rotations. Sabatini giving out high fives. Again, I think the 3 falls on the balance beam to start Yale's day, that is adversity, right? That's something you have to respond from, and this Yale team is doing a good job, but it certainly can be challenging because gymnastics is such a momentum sport as well, and the order of events and how you're doing can dictate your meet as a whole.
The floor for Brown up next, the beam for Penn. Cornell will make their way to the bars and Yale to the vault. As the Bears, a solid job on the beam. Cornell right there with them on the vault. There's Maya Davis, who right now, oh, I'm sorry, that's not Maya Davis. That was Liza Marcus with the top overall score on the beam so far. It's Wilson for Yale, and of course Marr and company for Penn on the bars. We'll take a timeout. We'll be back here with our next rotation here on ESPN. Well, Mike Martin and the Bears have won a few more since that record-setting victory, and this place will be wild and hopping here next weekend. A win, and Brown will advance to the Ivy Madness, being hosted this year by Princeton down at Jadwin Gym. Bears need to beat Yale on Saturday night, a 7:30 tip here at the Pits. A loss for Cornell at home on senior day for them against Columbia would also send the Bears in, but prefer to take care of business and not leave things to the Lions, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's between Brown and Cornell basically for that last spot. The top three are already set. Still have to shake out the seeding, but Penn, Princeton, and Yale will all be at Ivy Madness. That fourth spot up for grabs, and the Bears coming down to the final game. They beat Columbia yesterday in New York City.
And speaking of Ivy Madness, the four Ivy competing gymnastic schools vying for the Ivy Classic Championship here this afternoon. The next rotation, Brown on the floor, Penn on the beam, Yale vaulting, and Cornell on the bars. There's a look at it.
Mike, this might be the most important rotation of today's meet. And the reason I say that is because one of the questions I asked multiple coaches was, is there one event that dictates your team's success maybe a little more than others? One event where your success is hinging on how you do in that specific routine and rotation? Head coach of Cornell, Melanie Hall, her answer was the uneven bars. That's where the Big Red are right now. Andrew Lease of Yale, his answer was the vault. He said that he wants to see his team go 6 for 6 on the vault, and they haven't quite done that yet this year. He answered with the vault as Yale's most important event. So 2 of the 4 right now are in a crucial rotation, and the leaders, Penn and Brown, are on the floor and beam respectively.
For Penn on the beam in the bottom left corner of your screen is Kirsten Belkoff, as onto the vault went Oren Aviad, the Californian for the Bulldogs. Finishing up there on the bars for Cornell was Kate Michelini. As getting ready to go on the floor for Brown is Ella Poli.
See, this is my kind of music right here.
Yeah, I'm more of the, I much prefer things that were made longer ago, i.e. Earth, Wind, and Fire. Poli into her first pass.
Great start.
Oh, here we go. See, something I can appreciate. This might be the happy medium for you and I.
This is where we meet in the middle, Mike. This is teamwork. And I want to update on the scores because through 2 rotations, believe that Penn was just edging out Brown by 25 thousandths of a point. 97.475 for Penn through 2 events, 97.45 for Brown. Also, if you want to be keeping up with live statistics throughout this meet, you can go to Brown's website, go to their schedule, and click on the little stats icon beneath the Ivy Classic. There are live stats available online for viewers at home.
Ella Poli got some great height into the dismount here for Cornell. Was going to be Walton, but she wasn't feeling it and decided to drop. Polly's happy with her results, so is her teammates. So are her teammates, sorry, a little subject-verb agreement issue there.
Spoken like a true teacher, Mike. You know your stuff.
Yeah. You don't get to an Ivy League English degree without a little bit of subject-verb agreement issue here and there. We didn't have Grammarly when I was at school.
Nice job by Polly getting a look at the replay there. And assistant coach Jay Villegas right behind in the tan blazer. Penn on the balance beam. Remember, this is an awesome event for the Quakers. Historically, throughout this season, they set a program record, 49.475. That's incredible. And the way they did it, well, the Mars sisters, McKaylee and Campbell, each scored a 9.95. Almost perfect.
This is Benson for, this is Alyssa Rosen for Penn. Heading down the track and into the vault for Yale.
Hey, Yale's getting some momentum here. They're coming alive and really excited. They didn't start the way they wanted on the beam, but again, short-term memory is an athlete's best friend. And right now, Yale finding some momentum and some great routines on the vault.
You could see Penn's confidence on the beam as well. Their team, Belkoff, Rosen, Kuhn, Werlin, and the Mars, is getting ready to head up on the bars for Cornell. Will be Melanie Stone. Yale already to their fourth vaulter, Reagan Walker, and hugs all around for Alyssa Rosen on the beam. Here's Walker, hands extended. She prepares to head down the runway. Fourth vaulter for Yale. Had good height. Had to take an extra half step to solidify her landing.
And Walker getting ready for her best event on the bars, and she competes on the vault as well. Walker scored a 9.675 on the vault her last time out. She competes in 3 of the 4 events.
And Cornell has to wait. The stats still being compiled from the last bars attempt.
Yeah, that's something we haven't talked a ton about so far tonight, or this afternoon, I should say, but the scoring. You got multiple judges on each event averaging the scores, and a couple coaches mentioned that, scoring is subjective in a sport like this, and sometimes you can't control, and that's a huge move on the top beam, and you saw Melody Hall was underneath in case there was a fall. There was no fall. Cornell invested in this routine right now. Awesome! And remember, this is an event that Cornell thinks that they can still get better at this year. The uneven bars, they're off to a great start.
Lauren Kramer on the floor is going to have a slight deduction from her first pass. She did go out of bounds. What a finish. It's a great landing there on the Cornell bars. As on the beam for Penn is Kristen Kuhn, who had a 9.8 on the bars earlier.
And we just talked a lot about Walton's routine on the uneven bars, Mike. Last time out on the uneven bars, she was below a 9.5, so a big improvement there and a bit of a stumble in the corner, but again, it's on to the next pass and the next move.
And about to head down the runway for Yale on the other end is Sherry Wang. She'll be the last vaulter for Yale, and has a great landing, a great run, a lot of height.
And that might be the vault performance that head coach Andrew Lease was looking for. The team looks really excited right now. Of course, scores still coming in. But that's an event that Yale felt that they could improve this season, and they looked really solid by everything I saw just now.
A good work there by Kewen on the beam as we head back down to Sydney Beers and the bars.
Beers an all-arounder. It's just her and Sabatini competing for the all-around crown in this event, in this meet, I should say. And Beers, probably the best gymnast on this Cornell team if you're looking at average score, ability to compete in multiple events. And her last time out, she scored below a 9.4 on the bars, and head coach Melanie Hall said that that was the one event that Beers was looking to improve. She's got the shiny red cowboy hat and has the praise of her teammates. A great day so far for Sydney Beers.
Sophia Dewar will be next to the floor for Brown as Penn sends Alicia Werlin to be followed by Campbell and McKaylee Marr as we'll get another look at Wang's vault here. Good rotation, nice tuck underneath, a clean line. And here comes Dewar. A good opening pass. I can name that tune too.
We were here for a dual meet a few weeks back, Mike, and Brown had a day on the floor exercises. Julia Bedell tied the program record on the floor. So Brown here in their home gym, now in the most expressive event, and the Bears are loving it. Big pass coming here.
A lot of height and a clean landing from the floor exercise of Sophia Dewar.
And you can see how much confidence is crucial in an event like this. We did just have a fall on the uneven bars. We'll keep you posted there. But the more successful moves, the more successful passes, and you just start to gain momentum throughout your event.
Penn looking so strong on the beam. Well-timed routine from Sophia Dewar on the floor.
Penn celebrating over on the beam as well.
Yeah, Werlin with a terrific routine in some.
Look at that. How about that pass was just outstanding and really got the crowd into it.
Finishing up on the bars. And now let's look at this. Dismount.
That's a replay of the most recent beam competitor for Penn. Again, this is probably their best event as they continue to work through their six.
Yeah, Alicia Werlin. Solid, if not spectacular, results from Penn so far on the beam.
Apologies, Mike. Werlin, just a freshman, and her last time on the beam, 9.725, so you know she can get that 9.7, 9.8 range. Still waiting for the score from the judges.
Cornell's Maddie Sakalowski did fall, so that brings us to Laura McKenzie, their sixth and final competitor on the bars.
And I think that this is going to be a really good score for the Big Red on an event that they are working on and putting together a really impressive performance here today. This is a replay on the beam as well from Penn.
Again, Penn still has the Marr sisters to finish. So far, Alyssa Rosen, the lead for the Quakers at 9.75. This is Maya Davis, I believe, for Brown on the floor.
And she goes classical, went classical music. Her last home meet on the floor as well, and she's off to a great start with a beautiful first pass.
So we now have three events live at once. McKenzie on the bars, Davis on the floor, Marr on the beam, and she has fallen. Marr just fell off the beam as a terrific result, I think, for McKenzie on the bars. Davis with an important pass.
Second of her routine.
Stays inbounds as she got deep to the sideline. She was off kilter, off the corner, but again, you stay between the stripes. That's what the judges are watching.
Yeah, and again, consistency, right, Mike? If you put together 5, 6 good scores, your team's going to be in great shape. Right now, Brown, through their 3 events, have just 2 scores below a 9.6. A lot of 9.7s. And a 9.725 for Dewar on the floor. So Brown is being really consistent throughout today's meet, and it's showing.
A clean routine for Maya Davis. Doesn't have that same energy based on the music, but had every bit the same amount in terms of execution.
Yeah, no question. And just want to loop back to Cornell and the uneven bars. Melanie Hall said that the bars were really important for her team here today. She competed in the uneven bars as a student athlete, and Cornell turns in a 48.675. Really good score for Cornell as you get a look at the end of Davis's routine. That's over a point improvement on the uneven bars for Cornell from their last meet. That's a huge difference and can make a big impact on their team score.
On the floor, Brown still with Caroline Van Zandt and Julia Bedell. Bedell anchors both the floor and the vault. In the words of Coach Harris, 2 words you don't always hear in the same sentence: powerful and graceful.
Yeah, no question. And those are a great combination as well. And you can see the emotion for Cornell. Correction, their score on the uneven bars was a 47.625. And that is still improvement from last week. It's a half a point improvement. I was looking at the wrong score for Cornell, and a different event, but still really a big gain for Melanie Hall's squad on the uneven bars.
And I think Davis might have just notched a 9.8 on the floor.
That would be the first 9.8 for the Bears on the floor so far.
A 9.8 and a 9.75, so that'll go in as a 9.775.
And still the high for the Bears.
With McKaylee Marr about to head to the beam as the final competitor for Penn.
Once again, floor and beam wrapping up. We got 2 floor routines to go for the Bears, 1 beam exercise left for the Quakers.
This is Van Zandt, a floor specialist. To the back spring, got great height.
Wow. Again, Mike, there are certainly standout performances for each of these teams, but I think Brown's biggest weapon so far in this meet has been the fact that they really have not had weak links. Every performance has been consistent. They seem to be really excited, and right now Van Zandt is cooking as the second to last on the floor.
Well, we said at the top of the broadcast it was going to come down to the last event, and right now it's sort of seeming that way.
Shaking out that way, yeah. We'll get you the scores at the end of the 3rd rotation, but right now I'm looking at possibly 3 teams right around 145. Van Zandt kills the second pass. She is putting together a great routine. Keep an eye on Marr as well on the beam.
She's at the bottom left of your screen. That's McKaylee Marr. A side dismount. Quakers needed a big score there from her, and I think they got it.
Marr, NCAA qualifier, one of the best gymnasts in the gym here on Sunday afternoon. And she is a huge part of Penn's team and Penn's success.
Her day is over. She does not compete on the floor. And the Bears with one more competitor, Bedell, on the floor as we wait for the final scores. Right now, your overall leader on the floor is Alex Kiana of Cornell with a 9.8.
And how about Van Zandt? Take a look at the replay. Head coach Brittany Harris is pumped up as she walks around the scoring table.
And we're going to watch. I mentioned the 9.8 for Kiana because Van Zandt's elements might be enough to push her.
The near side judge is showing 9.9 facing us. Far side judge says 9.7, so that averages out to a 9.8. Wow. Brittany Harris's arms outstretched. She does not agree with that far side judge.
I'm wondering if she's, she's.
I mean, Brittany Harris is incredulous right now at the score. The average comes out to a 9.8.
With a 2/10 of a, she might ask them to talk about it. Or she'll just dance.
Yep, Brittany Harris, really positive coach. We had a chance to talk with her on Friday afternoon, and she was excited about this meet and the potential for her team. Van Zandt will have that score come out to a 9.8. That'll still be the best for the Bears, but could have been closer to a 9.85 or even a 9.9 if the judges were closer on the same page.
Rare that they're 2/10 apart.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. Here's Julia Bedell for Brown in what is the final competitor of this third rotation.
Yep, we're nearing crunch time here, Mike. End of the third quarter. We're about to start the fourth, if you will. What a start! Oh my gosh.
You know, I do not make any excuse for myself in terms of this sport, but watching Coach Harris marching around the floor, I don't know how anybody wouldn't want to compete for her.
Yeah, she is a high-energy coach and competed at Oregon State, a really strong program out in the Pac-12, and she just has that positivity radiate throughout her team. A lot of really strong coaches here in the gym today. It was a pleasure to talk with all of them leading up to this event.
Words of confidence into Bedell's pass. Look at Coach Harris in the corner, a big smile. So graceful, so powerful, so dynamic. And Bedell, spot on for the Bears. Their anchor on the floor. And now we'll see if the judges on the floor are a little closer together.
Bedell tied a school record with a 9.925. The last time we were here at the Pizzatola Sports Center, waiting for the judges to finish up on the near and far side, and Bedell, the anchor, on the floor. Take a look at the replay of some of her routine.
Well, if you look up and down the score sheet now, folks, there's a lot of Brown, there's a lot of Penn. In the beam, McKaylee Mars, 9.85, is now tops overall by 2.025, 25 thousandths, ahead of Liza Marcus. But then it's Maya Davis at 9.775 and Alyssa Rosen at 9.75. So those top four gymnasts all cancel each other out. They're all even. Then it's Kramer, McEwen, Kuhn, and Rowland all even with each other. Angela Zing and Kirsten Belkoff both at 9.7. This one is a shootout, folks.
Yeah, this is going to be fun, and we're still waiting on those final scores to come in so we can get you a team update. Penn has broken 146 through 3 events. Still waiting on that last score for Brown on the floor. We got a 9.95 from the far side judge.
And a 9, and I think a 9.9 on this side.
So that would tie the school record and Bedell's personal record with a 9.925, and that's a big boost for the Bears.
It is a 9.925. The Bears with a 48.85 on the floor. And now Brown with the overall lead by 75 thousandths of a point.
146.3 for the Bears at the top of the table right now. 146.225 for Penn. Cornell at a 145.025 in third. And Yale 144.775. But they had a really strong vault event. Mike, they scored a 48.775 on the vault. Their best event so far today.
Yeah.
And just outstanding for Andrew Leese's squad, who is really focusing on that event over the last couple weeks.
So when we return, we will have our fourth and final event. Can the Bears seal it with a solid vault? Can Penn take the championship on the floor? We will find out when we return to the Pichatola Sports Center. This is the Ivy League on ESPN. Welcome back, folks. Good to have you with us here after 3 rotations for our entire team. And my broadcast partner, David Korzanowski. My name is Mike Rubin. Julia Bedell, the 9.925 on the floor, sends Brown into an overall lead as they picked up a 1/10 of a point on Penn. Yale on the vault, 48.775, and Cornell, 47.625 on the bars. And our team scores find the Brown Bears at 146.3, Penn at 146.225, and Cornell not wasting any time. They're already up on the beam.
Cornell with a 145.025 in third. Yale in fourth, 144.775. What do they say, Mike? Pressure makes diamonds. This is the final event. And for Brown and Penn, every one of these 6 competitors is important. Ella Poli off to a good start for the Bears. Team's fired up.
She had good height. This for Cornell on the beam is Kate Michelini.
And Mike, if you look at Penn's score on the floor from their last meet and Brown's score on the vault from their last meet, those scores are separated by just over 3/10 of a point.
Michelini's dismount, a little stumble. Now, keep in mind, folks, that the last 2 or 3 even competitors for Penn on the floor will likely take the floor with the vault done.
Correct.
So they'll know what they need to score.
It's interesting. Some gymnasts might focus on that. Some gymnasts might try to just tune that out and finish their routine and not even think about the scores until the end. Long story short, this is going to come down to the wire. Penn and Brown in their season best scores as a team also had the vault and floor separated by less than a half a point. So
that was Lauren Kramer, top left. Next to her on the right was, I think, Kirsten Belkoff for Penn on the floor. But so far, Brown's Poli and Kramer, pretty well done over on the vault.
And remember what head coach Brittany Harris told us leading up to this week. She liked the way that the rotations were stacked. You got floor third and vault fourth. Brown had a really good floor group, and Julia Bedell sent it over to the vault with some momentum for the Bears. We'll see how that translates. Also keep in mind, Penn coming off of a really strong balance beam led by McKaylee Marr, who leads that event through 3 rotations. Last point I want to make here, Mike, is just an issue of table setting. Brown has only broken a 195 twice in school history. It is feasible for the Bears to get over 145 today. They would need a 48.7 or better on the vault. That is a reasonable score and one that's certainly possible.
Some great height for Umi El-Maman of Brown as she got up, had a little bit of a hiccup on her landing. Let's see if we get another look. Yeah, a little bit, but probably enough to get into that 9-7 range.
And that's the thing that the Bears have done a great job of today, Mike, is consistency. They've been right around 9-7 in most events for almost all of their gymnasts. Not often ducking below that, and so far on the vault, 2 for 2 with a 9.7 or better.
9.725 for Poley. Kramer 9.775. Keep in mind, Penn had the 4.98s.
Yep.
For Cornell, this is Regina Walton on the beam. I'm sorry, this is Michaela Burton on the beam.
Yep, Michaela Burton, the freshman from Noonan, Georgia, competing for Melanie Hall's squad. Last time out on the balance beam, she had a 9.8. She's a strong competitor. This is the 4th of 6 for the Bears, and a great landing.
For Dewar and then Burton. Bang, bang. Great work by our production crew so you can see the end of both literally in real time.
Yeah, this is like 4th quarter, but you got 4 buzzers going off at the same time, and our producer and director, Becky Schonecker, Chris Adams in there as well.
You better say something nice about the camera operator. She'll put you through the boards.
Hey, we got a great crew on hand for this Ivy Classic here today.
Next up for the Penn Quakers, there's Coach Lees of the Bulldogs. Up for Penn on the floor, Carly Onoki. As heading down the runway, Abby Contello for Brown. An absolutely perfect landing.
That was a big one. That's a really big score for the Bears. And you need 1 or 2 of your 6 to be pushing for a 9.8, right? Penn had 4 vaulters, 9.8 flat. So Brown would love 1 or 2 to help out their score on this event. They'd have just 1 more vaulter, and then their scores in the books.
A 9.65 for Belkoff to lead off the floor. Only 1 more vaulter for Brown as they are racing through the vault. It'll be Julia Bedell for the Bears. And then we can turn our attention back to the floor, the bars and the beam. On the beam, this is Victoria DeMeo of Cornell. That's, again,
I loved what head coach Brittany Harris told us about this meet. She said it's a little check-in. We're going to compete against all the Ivy schools ahead of the GEC championship and see how we stack up.
I want to say Julia Bedell just answered the bell for Brown with a solid final vault.
Yep, you just saw floor exercise wrap up as well. Here is Cornell on the beam. Brown's day is done. Their last vaulter just finished.
Abby Contello did register a 9.8.
That's big. That's really big for the Bears here. They've already broken a 195 team score, and that's without Bedell's score. Here's the replay of the anchor vaulter.
Look at the hands, look at the velocity.
I mean, that's a great landing.
And likely above 9.8 for Bedell.
Do it for the Bears. Could that be the score that gives them this meet win? Penn still has something to say about it on the floor. Don't get it twisted. And Yale and Cornell competing and trying to finish strong in their final rotation as well. Great thing about gymnastics meets, Mike, you're competing against the other teams, but you're always trying to improve that team score, improve that event score, improve that personal score. There's victories to be had for all of these 4 teams here at the Ivy Classic.
Sherry Wong for Yale on the bars. And Julia Bedell, a 9.85, the top overall vaulter, gives Brown a 195.2 team score. That is the second best team score in Brown history.
Beating out a 195.175 from 2016. Last year they almost broke 196 to set that school record. And Bedell, a great finish. Outstanding performance by Brittany Harris's squad today. A season best score, 195.2. Again, all of these scores have to be double, triple checked by the judges after the meet. There might be alterations, there might not. So this is not fully in the books, but Brown looks to have broken a 195.2.
Carly Inoki goes into the books with a 9.75 on the floor. The Bears are pumped.
And I just want to point out in your bottom right, Reagan Walker, one of the best on the uneven bars in the GEC and in the Ivy League. She has outstanding power, is just an elite gymnast, and excels in this event. This is going to be a fun routine to watch in your bottom right.
On your bottom left for Cornell.
Oh my goodness.
That is a great finish.
That was so good. First team all GEC in this event last year.
Look at that landing.
Outstanding. I mean, she doesn't budge. The legs are in
perfect
concrete practically.
Yep. And onto the floor for Penn. This is Emma Davies.
Just one more look at this dismount from our floor level camera, and you can tell Reagan Walker ended her day with a bang. Well, look at big victory.
I mean, we can see as you are watching at home, in front of us, we're watching the Yale team. A 10 and a 9. Walker has just gone 9.95, and I'd have to venture a guess that that is a Yale record.
I mean, to get a 10 from a judge, oh my goodness, Reagan Walker, maybe the routine of the day. Congratulations to the senior for the Yale Bulldogs. Tears of joy, and her team so proud of this fantastic athlete.
A senior neuroscience major from California.
Awesome.
Who, let's be clear, folks, hasn't been able to compete because she tore her Achilles and stuck through it. If that doesn't say enough about her character, I don't know what does.
And that gives Yale some momentum towards the end of their meet. Remember how they started on the balance beam, and it was a tough start for Yale. They've continued to scratch and fight and claw, and they end on the bars. Walker with a great routine. Let's see how that feeds into the next.
Caitlin Henry, a little stumble in the end with that heavily braced right leg, but a solid finish for the Bulldogs. As we mentioned, they had 3 gymnasts fall in the beam, but got better as the day went on, and we'll take some positives moving forward. Penn with still 3 gymnasts on the floor: Alyssa Rosen, Sarah Kenfick, and Marissa Lassiter. For Cornell on the beam, I believe this is Regina Walton. 5 of 6.
Just doing some quick math. Penn's floor score would need to be a 48.975 to tie Brown at 195.2. Remember, Brown is done. The vault is over. And through 3 events, Penn was at a 146.225. They're going to need to be close to a 49 on the floor to match Brown. They would need to get a 49 on the dot to move ahead of Brown.
That would be a season best for Penn.
Take a look at this pass. Our eyes going to be glued especially to the floor here as Cornell finishes up on the beam as well. We're nearing the home stretch of the Ivy Classic, Mike, and it's coming down to the wire, just as all 4 of these coaches thought it would.
48.95, the best score for Penn on the floor. That was back on the 12th of February at a meet they hosted.
And I'm curious how these Penn Quakers respond to the challenge. They know that they have to be at their best here, and oftentimes that brings out the best in some of these outstanding young athletes. Exhale, and here comes the pass.
Kenfick gets good height.
Whoa!
And a perfect landing.
That was big. That was big. She's pumped.
Well, and now you go back to that. And again, I'm not one to talk about officiating, but that second to last, the Caroline Van Zandt.
Yeah. No, that was big.
That was big.
That was a huge moment. And reading the body language of Brittany Harris and some of the Brown Bears, the near side judge, again, we kind of have a view of where their score is going to be. Near side judge had a 9-9. Far side judge had a 9-7. And that brought Van Zandt's average score to a 9-8 when she could have been maybe a quarter, half.
Even more, yeah.
Even more better.
So here's Sydney Beers, I'm sorry. Trying to wrap up what would be the all-around. One of just two gymnasts competing in all four events.
Yeah, and Beers is going to be a great gymnast to watch throughout her career, just a sophomore, and she's already competing at such a high level. Look at Beers here. Wow, great job, and nearing the end of the routine. Still can't believe that Reagan Walker 9.95, a full 1/10 of a point better than second best on the bars today.
The overall leader on the vault is Julia Bedell, 9.85, and the vault is done.
Yep.
The overall leader in the bars was, as David just mentioned, Walker's 9.95.
Here comes the dismount for Beers.
With McKaylee Mars, 9.85, the best. That will stand up. And Beers, you could see, little smile. She knew that that was not her finest dismount.
Wasn't perfect, but a really great day for Sydney Beers, and congratulations to one of the two all-arounders in this meet.
Yeah, Gigi Sabatini in the books with a 38.775, a 9.55 for Sabatini on the floor. She then came out with a 9.7 on the beam and a 9.7 on the bars to go along with, I thought a 9.8, yeah, 9.825 on the vault for Sabatini to tie Sydney Beers in that event.
So Beers is done, which means Cornell is wrapped up on the beam. The last event to go here in the Ivy Classic is Penn on the floor, and it's for a possible chance at the Ivy Crown.
This is Sarah Kennefick. Marissa Lassiter will be in the 6th and final spot, and she's out of bounds by about half a foot. That's a 0.1 deduction if you do end up out of bounds. Now keep in mind, there are no corner judges to raise a flag, as you sometimes see in some of the other competitions, and you will see when you get to the GEC Championships in a couple of weeks.
Remember, Penn's magic number is of 48.975 on the floor. That would tie them with Brown at 195.2.
They've had two very good results so far. Inoki and Davies both with 9.75s. As Kennefick goes into the books, we'll keep an eye on the judges. There's one more to go. That would be Marissa Lassiter.
Brown's got to be feeling pretty good here. It's going to take an outstanding effort from Penn. Just one to go in what has been an outstanding day of gymnastics.
And Sydney Beers will edge Gigi Sabatini for the overall all-around championship. They were the only two competing in all four. Sabatini's 38.775, Beers a 38.95. On the strength of that beam that sort of clinched it for her at 9.675. Beers also with tremendous effort in the vault, and a very good score on the bars as well.
And keep in mind here, after this Marissa Lassiter routine on the floor, the judges will all come together, check each other's scores, and make this official. So we'll have an idea of where the scores are going to shake out, but if you want official word, keep it here on the broadcast. We'll get it to you if the judges figure it out in a reasonable time.
A 9-7 for Kennefic as the judges were even. They had exactly the same scores, and that brings us to Marissa Lassiter.
And keep in mind how crucial Brown's two scores of 9.8 or higher on the floor look now, right? Bedell with a 9.925 and Van Zant with a 9.8. Penn has yet to eclipse a 9.8 on the floor.
Marissa Lassiter, the first year from Waldorf, Maryland, has gone as high as 9.875 this season on the floor.
And you want to talk about pressure. The anchor on the floor, last to compete in the final rotation, and for huge scoring at the top of this meet.
Gets great height. Will half step back, but some good energy from Lassiter.
The teams that have completed their days are starting to huddle up, and I'm sure waiting with bated breath. Watching from a distance, especially Brown. All eyes on Marissa Lassiter. Literally, all eyes in the gym.
A capacity crowd on hand here at the Pizzatola Sports Center. A lively crowd at that, as Lassiter concludes the competition and will be the final score in the books. After two rotations, Penn had a lead. Brown went to the floor, Penn went to the beam, arguably their best event. And the Bears just continued to kind of roll along, very consistent.
I mean, how about Brown? I'm looking at their team scores right now. They were 48.7 or higher in every event.
Brown's score on the bars, they got started with 48.7. They went to the beam, went 48.75. Went to the floor, went 48.85, and then went to the vault and went 48.9. Brown advancing their score after each event.
Yeah, and looking at Penn's scores and just the difference, right? Brown, I said that every event they were 48.7 or higher. Penn had the bars at a 48.575, so that's below that 48.7 mark, and the floor score still being tabulated right now, but it looks like that will be below a 48.7 as well. Consistency was huge for the Bears today.
Lassiter had a 9.8 in the vault earlier. We're waiting on her floor score. It looks like one side they're starting to turn the cards.
Yep, near side it's looking like a 9.8.
And on the far side, a 9.7, so a 9.85, a 9.75, I'm sorry, for Lassiter.
They're going to wait and calculate these scores and wait for the official word from our public address announcer, Tim Gear.
Tim's done a great job getting us all these numbers all day long. I know they were dealing with some technical challenges as well. And I think some fans in the stands who've been doing some hand calculations and might have even seen an abacus out there, and I think the Bears know it. Take a look at that floor as the Brown Bears are celebrating an Ivy championship for the first time since 2016.
What a score for the Brown Bears. They break 195 for the first time all season. Penn ends with a 194.875, so Brown ends up clearing the Quakers by over .3. And Mike, what two teams were first and second in the GEC championships last year? Penn was number 1, Brown was number 2. This Brown gymnastics program has gotten so much better, especially over the last 2 seasons, and they get some much-deserved celebration here today. Congratulations to head coach Brittany Harris as well in her first season capturing a win at the Ivy Classic.
And talking to all of these coaches, they acknowledged how special it is. It's a different kind of meet. This isn't like, your usual dual meets like the Brown Bears will have in a couple of weeks when they have Maryland and Penn. This is a very different meet because of just that term, Ivy Classic. And
look at the emotion. I mean, this is just outstanding. This is what you compete for. This is a highlight in your college career. And on their home floor as well. How about that?
I think that's probably a little bit
icing on the cake
of what has made this an emotional day. Is there's a lot of tears being shed of joy for the Brown Bears who capture the Ivy Classic in front of their home fans on a very lively, exciting, dynamic day.
And how about Julia Bedell? She wins 2 events outright. Best score on the vault, best score on the floor, and gave Brown some of those big scores that they needed to edge out a really good Penn team. Wow. Congratulations to the Brown Bears.
A lot of raw emotion on the floor. You know what? We're going to take a timeout. We'll bring it back here for the awards ceremony in a couple of minutes. The Brown Bears, the 2023 Ivy champions in the sport of gymnastics. We'll step aside. This is the Ivy League on ESPN. Well, we got a dance party on the mat here at the Prince-Tola Sports Center, as these teams were, I think, a little tired of sitting around waiting for the officials to finalize the results. And we're going to bring you some of that, some of those final scores in just a moment. For David Korzenowski and our entire outstanding ESPN team, my name is Mike Rubin. The coaches are, I think, taking a look over the final results as well. There will be all Ivy Award winners announced, the top 6 in each event. Top 3 are first team All-Ivy, the next 3 are second team All-Ivy, and then, of course, the team championships. They're also going to introduce all of the seniors, and I think it goes without saying that, all of the coaches that we have spoken to, not just in gymnastics. I was covering the men's swimming and diving championships this week as well. You're wrapping up basketball season. The coaches have been effusive in their praise of the leadership and the character of these seniors who could have walked away a long time ago.
Yeah, no question. And I think my conversation with head coach Melanie Hall of Cornell really stood out when she talked about some of these juniors and seniors who have been through a lot in their college career. Remember COVID not that long ago? It affected the sports season in 2021 as well. And it's a lot of adversity for these young student athletes to deal with as they're already working as basically full-time athletes, working as students, developing themselves professionally and applying for jobs if they're seniors. And the leaders on all 4 of these teams have just set the standard for each of their respective programs and led to what was an outstanding meet here today. And the Ivy League is in great hands going forward because of some of the leaders on these teams.
And we had a good time here bringing you all the action this afternoon. And again, they're introducing all of the seniors first, which is, I think, a worthy and classy move. It's something that we have seen done pretty consistently over a couple of the competitions we've seen over the last several years. And some folks out there may be wondering why we keep referring to this as the Ivy Championship or the Ivy Classic Championship and not the Ivy League Championship. I think that does require a bit of clarification. There are the 4 programs, and the Ivy League as a conference does not recognize this as a league sport because it is only 50% of the programs in the league or athletic programs in the league that sponsor gymnastics as a varsity team. Dartmouth has had a club, so too, I believe, do Harvard and Princeton. But these are the 4 that have varsity programs.
And to your point, Mike, for it to be an official Ivy League championship, you need over half. So you need 5 or more. And there's possibility of maybe another school or 2 joining in the future, but still plenty of things that need to happen before that would be official. So that is why this is called the Ivy Classic. But Mike, who are we kidding? This has a championship feel. This is a huge barometer in the GEC season, and what a great job by the Brown Bears. We're now getting some individual award recognition for the top 3 in each event.
This is the vault. There was a 5-way tie for 4th. Kirsten Belkoff, Campbell Marr, Marissa Lassiter, Rose DeBarbery, all with 9.8s, along with Abby Contello of Brown in the vault, all with 9.8s. Tied for second in the vault, Gigi Sabatini and Sydney Beers of Yale and Cornell, respectively, both with 9.825. They competed in the all-around against each other.
Exactly, yeah. For them to be tied for second and be the only 2 all-around gymnasts, really impressive for both Beers and Sabatini.
9.850 from Brown University.
And the winner of the vault, the Ivy League champion, Julia Bedell, with a 9.850 in what at the time was the final vault in the final event, putting the exclamation point on the team effort for Brown.
Yeah, pretty awesome for her to be the last vaulter of the day and win first place in this meet. And spoiler alert, we're going to be seeing Julia Bedell in another event as a first place winner.
In the uneven bars, three gymnasts at 9.8, Sarah Wilson of Yale, and Penn's Kristen Kuhn and Carly Inoki, both with 9.8. In third place for Brown, Abby Contello at 9.825. In second, McKaylee Marr of Penn, 9.85. And the champion of the uneven bars, Reagan Walker of Yale, 9.95.
This is Marr that's being recognized right now, and Reagan Walker, maybe the single routine of the day, Mike. Only gymnast to get a 9.95. She got a 10 from one of the 2 judges. Congratulations to Reagan Walker. An outstanding performance in her final Ivy Classic.
I think they got a little mix-up over there with the medals they're going to get. There's Walker, and they're saying, you know what, hey, it's going to take us a minute, but we will get you one. Give us a second. And here they go. In the beam, and the beam, one of the really challenging events throughout. We saw McKaylee Marr leading Penn's team in the end with the top overall score. But the scores were really all over the place on the beam.
Yeah, the beam was a tough one today, and we saw it from the first rotation. Mike, we were listing the top 6 scores for the first 2 events, and they were all 9.8 or higher. Just to give you an idea of how challenging the balance beam was today, if you got a 9.75, you were tied for 5th. That just shows how tough that event was. Only 3 athletes 9.8 or higher on the balance beam.
Emma Mangiacapre of Yale, Alyssa Rosen and Regina Walton of Penn and Cornell at 9.75, tie for 5th. For a while, Liza Marcus was in the lead along with Maya Davis of Brown. Davis at 9.775. Michaela Burton for Cornell busted out with a 9.8 on one of the last turns for Cornell on the beam. Marcus going 9.825 and McKaylee Marr 9.85 in the Penn, from Penn.
There's Maya Davis. She had a great floor exercise as well.
Now for our first team All-Ivy honorees in third place, the score of 9.800 from Cornell, Michaela Burton.
Brown with their season best team score of the season, eclipsing 195. Penn, Yale, and Cornell all with solid showings, but not their season best for the team score today.
Liza Marcus, a beam specialist. And there's room for Brown, I think. I think one of the things that we saw, Brown's top two competitors on the beam, Abby Contello and Angela Zing, had a couple of errors on their way.
Right, and it was the fact that Brown was consistent in all four events. They were 48.7 or higher in each of the four, and that really helped those team scores in each event. They didn't need a 9.9 on the beam from Bedell or anyone like that, and they did a great job on the balance beam today. Excuse me, Zing, I meant to say for balance beam specialist.
A four-way tie for sixth on the floor. Emma Davies and Carly Inoki of Penn, Sydney Beers of Cornell, and Maya Davis of Brown, all with 9.75s.
Also in sixth place from Cornell, Sydney Beers.
Yeah, the floor was so much fun to watch from rotation 1 through rotation 4, and 4 athletes were 9.8 or higher.
Really great day at the office for Maya Davis.
Score of 9.775 from Cornell, Caitlin Wall. For your first team All-Ivy honorees, finishing a three-way tie for second.
Three-way tie for second on the floor.
0-0 from Penn,
Marissa Lassiter of Penn, who was the final competitor of the day.
from Cornell, Alexa Quiana.
Alexa Kiana, who had the top overall score in the floor for a while at 9.8, and then Brown's Caroline Van Zant with the 9.8, not without an eyebrow raise.
Yeah, we talked about it a little, but if you're just joining us, the two scores for Van Zant on the floor were 9.9 and then a 9.7. Averages out to have her tied for second place, and Bedell wins on the floor.
9.925 in what I think really turned the tide of this meet.
Yeah, no question. I mean, she tied a school record, tied her personal best from the last time that the Bears were here at home. And head coach Brittany Davis needed her best gymnast to show up big. And Bedell, wearing 2 gold medals, winner of 2 events. Very impressive.
There were only 2 gymnasts competing in the all-around. In second place from Yale, Gigi Sabatini at 38.775. And the all-around winner from Cornell, 38.950 for Sydney Beers.
And how about this, Mike? Both of these all-around gymnasts are underclassmen. Sabatini, in her first season, she has so much potential for Andrew Lease and the Yale Bulldogs, and Sydney Beers, as just a sophomore, was incredibly impressive here today.
One last bit of business is to award the overall team championship scores. Cornell will end up in 4th with 193.4. about a little more than a quarter of a point behind Yale with 193.675. And, you know, I mean, no disrespect to Cornell, but that speaks, I think, and gives a lot of credit to the mental fortitude of Yale, because after the beam, David, we were watching that and saying, you know what, looks like this might not be Yale's day.
And they went to the vault, their event of focus, and killed it. It was huge in turning the tide for the Yale Bulldogs, and then you had Reagan Walker finishing up on the bars with a great end to the day. Nice job by Yale and some resilience in the face of adversity. Also with Cornell, I want to make a point that their uneven bars were also really solid, event they were focusing on.
Penn takes second at 194.925, and that means that your Ivy League champions, with the second highest score in Brown history, 195.2, the Brown Bears.
What a feeling for Brown. They capture the Ivy Classic and will hoist the trophy with first-year head coach Brittany Harris at the helm. Well-deserved, and a team that is improving so much. Still, the best might be yet to come for Brown.
Well, what a fun weekend we have had. It has been a busy few days here on College Hill as the Brown Bears pass around the Ivy Championship trophy for the first time since 2016. The title comes to Providence.
And they saved their best meet for the Ivy Classic, breaking 195 for the first time all season, and Brown will look to even improve on that. Penn just a hair below 195, one of their best scores of the season, and Yale and Cornell third and fourth. Like we said, there wasn't going to be much difference between these four, and that was borne out here today.
Don't drop the trophy, ladies. Congratulations to the Brown Bears, who are next in action in a week's time down at the University of Maryland. Stay tuned for the GEC Championships being hosted by William and Mary in mid-March. And that'll do it for our coverage of the Ivy Classic on an exciting day from the Pizzatola Sports Center. For David Korzenowski and our entire ESPN team, my name is Mike Rubin, saying so long from Brown, where the Bears are crowned Ivy champions. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy what's left of your weekend. Have a great night.